Hey, welcome back. All right, we're moving on to theme number 2 now, which is how do these technologies change us? This is going to be it's going to be uncomfortable, first of all, because I mean the baseline that you want to think about for this is not like how your life used to be before you got before you got a cell phone or something like that. Your baseline needs to be what is our species like without these technologies? And we talked about that. Our species is hunter-gatherers, and the way they slept and the way they were satisfied with their life is radically different than what we have. I want to break this theme into 3 questions. I think these are going to be 3 questions that we're going to discuss every week. What kind of person do these technologies make me? How do these technologies affect how we relate to other people? And how do these technologies affect how we relate to the natural world? So before we get into the specifics, which is going to kind of be recounting stuff that we've already talked about, I want you to just think about these things. These are big questions. These are questions that go to what is a fulfilling life? What kind of person am I going to be if I'm envisioning my ideal version of myself? And do these technologies lead me in that direction, or do they not? How do they affect how I treat other people, my friends, my family, the people that I love? As well as other people that are, just acquaintances, but particularly the people that you are going to see all the time. These technologies impact how you are as a person, how I am as a person. Are they impacting me in a way that I want? I can think of the ideal version of myself, how I relate to my wife and my kids. Do these technologies help me in that direction, or do they not? And how do they affect my relationship with the natural world, with animals, with the climate, with, all of that stuff? All of these are really important questions that you ought to be considering in the context of every technology that we talk about, in the context of, though, just your normal life. When you're thinking about a fulfilling life, you don't want to think, I need to follow what America tells me I should. You want to think, what would that be like for me in terms of my relationships with other people, in terms of the type of person I am, and create a life that allows you to have that version of yourself, the one that is a positive answer to all of those questions. But let's get to the specifics for this week. Okay, so what kind of person do these? Oops, sorry, I keep wandering off camera. What kind of person do these technologies make me? If we're a typical American, what they make us is a person who sleeps more than a hunter-gatherer needs to, but is also more tired and has worse health outcomes. That sucks when you think about this. The normal American technology diet with regard to sleep makes us less healthy, less happy. Straight up. Because our brain is not getting what it needs. It needs that time to be focused on, not on screens, not on productivity, to be focused on repairing and integrating the information that it has taken in that day. Instead, what we are is less happy, more impatient, more craving of distraction. Have you ever noticed how when you are sleep deprived, I mean, at least for me, it is way easier for me to just grab my phone and scroll than become the type of father and husband that I would like to be. And it also makes me less healthy, less physically healthy. Key here, something I want to point out, is that this is correlational. Yes, these technologies that we've talked about are all associated with these outcomes, but there are a lot of other things that contribute to our sort of poor mental and physical health outcomes. The fact that our diets, no offense, the typical American diet is terrible. The fact that we are stressed by school and work in ways that hunter-gatherers aren't. These technology variables that we've dealt with so far this week are part of the puzzle. They're an important part because sleep is super important to these outcomes, but it's worth just mentioning that everything that we're talking about here is correlated, it's associated with these negative outcomes. Okay, so that's the type of person it's making me, which means I should probably be changing how I live my life. How does it affect how we relate to other people? One main way is that and this comes to us from a professor of human biology at Emory University, who studied how our hunter-gatherer ancestors slept compared to us, and she came to we talked about this a little bit. I alluded to it a little bit. That they slept. The mattresses, such as they were these huge communal mats, and these people would sleep in large communal ways, which to us seems nuts. But she said the more she studied this, the more it seemed weird to her that human beings, these social animals, would sleep in more or less isolation from others. She came away from it thinking there was all this social reassurance that happened during falling asleep, during waking up briefly and being able to be around others, that we just don't have. And she said, by the end of it, she was like, I looked at my bed and I was like, we're the weird ones. So how does sleeping affect the way we relate to others? We're a bit more isolated than our hunter-gatherer ancestors were. And last, and a little bit more philosophically, how do these things affect how we relate to the natural world? They turn us into, if you're, the average American with the average American exposure to technology that we've talked about this week, you're a person who is not as integrated into nature as you could be. Now, not being integrated into nature isn't in and of itself terrible. Nature, a lot of parts of nature want to kill you. I mean, I have referred to our hunter-gatherer ancestors as having this, this wonderful sleep situation. But the reality is a lot of hunter-gatherer children died before they reached adulthood. If they reached adulthood, they could expect to live as long as we do, and on average, way happier because of their connections, because of the lack of stress, because of them getting decent sleep, so that their moods weren't affected negatively. But at the same time, far fewer of a smaller percentage of them reached adulthood compared to us. So it's not all. Being in nature is I don't want to idealize it. I don't want to romanticize it. It's not an easy life. But as we read, I think in our first week's reading, an easy life isn't necessarily a fulfilling life. But coming back to this question, we are less integrated into nature, which means, and we see that from our lack of exposure to sunlight, that is the beginning of, as I've alluded to a number of times, it's the beginning of all of the problems that we have. Our circadian rhythms are off because we don't wake up and expose ourselves to that sun that kickstarts our clock. Instead, we wake up, generally speaking, either in the dark or in a dim light. We turn on artificial lights. We're not outside immediately, which is what our bodies evolved to be. So we're obviously not as integrated into nature, but importantly, I think, we're also less aware of how we fit into the natural world. So I'm going to take it from that narrow idea of we're not integrated into nature, we're not having the sun's photons hit our eyes and kickstart our circadian rhythms. But we also tend to think of ourselves, many of us, as things apart from nature. Hunter-gatherers didn't have that experience. They were very aware of the fact that they were in nature. They were physically in it, but they also saw themselves as not above it. They were a piece of it. They were a piece of that puzzle. We are too. We just don't think of ourselves that way. And part of the reason we don't think of ourselves that way is we have these technologies that remove us from it. We are for the most part, in homes. We are sleeping on beds and on pillows. Very artificial. Not bad necessarily, but artificial. We have electric lights and screens that kind of turn us into, if you think about it, we're kind of superheroes. I mean, we can with a flip of our hand create sunlight essentially inside a room, even if it's midnight. That's a superpower. We can communicate with people across the world with something in our hands. That's a superpower. And we don't think of the fact that we are really, ultimately, we are part of this natural world. We fit into it as puzzle pieces, which is probably part of the reason that we are kind of cavalier about the fact that we're doing things that destroy our natural world, the only habitat that we've ever lived in. Okay, that's depressing, but I mean, it's true also, so I got to talk about it. So what kind of, how do these technologies change us? In those ways that are sort of uncomfortable. Sorry about that. But true and worth contemplating because, and we should finish with this. It's a little bit hopeful. This isn't a life sentence here. The fact that you and I, for the most part, have adopted these technologies unthinkingly, no offense, I've done them too, doesn't mean that you then can never think about the part that you want them to play in your life based on answering these questions, based on thinking not just what are the technologies available to me and so what are the outcomes, but what are the outcomes I want and how can the options of technologies that I have, how can I integrate them into my life such that I answer these questions in ways that I'm really happy with? That's kind of a better way of ending the video. In the next video, we're going to come back to the idea, though, of theme 3, which is even if we don't adopt a technology, we can still be affected by it. So sorry, it'll get depressing again. But I'll see you in that video.